Hello, welcome to the Scale Modelling Cafe. As promised, I said I was going to do some extra content, and I thought I'd do some more of the kits from the cabinet. And I've picked this one out because I've had a few people ask for it actually. It's a kit that's been published in the Weathering magazine interfrastically, as Blackadder once said. And uh, it's a really nice model actually, and it's this one here. I've got to be very careful because there's lots of sticky out bits. It's the Zvezda 72nd scale Mi-24 Hind. As I said, really nice detail, but as always, it can be enhanced significantly. It's got the full Edward photo etch inside and out. Inside as well, I've used the Quinta Studio set, and this was my first kit for using the Quinta Studio stuff. I do remember, because I built this a little while ago, I do remember that because it's very pliable, soft, it did lift in some areas, and it's quite a complicated set to get started on, to be fair. But I do prefer the Red Fox Studios system, which is hard acetate. So it's not decal at all. Anyway, I used it here and it was successful, and I was really pleased with the result. Externally wise, lots of aerials and sticky out bits, as I explained, meaning it's very difficult to pick it up. Added a few little extra bits here and there with some of the stays, and you know, some of the supports and things like that from a bit of Albion alloys. And that's kind of it for the traditional detailing. The non-traditional detailing then, internally, if I can turn this round without snapping anything off, can I hold it there by that? Yeah, I can just about hold it there by that, by the wing stubs. Right, if I turn it round, you can see that there's an engine missing there. The cowling is open, so there's no engine, and there's no engine on the other side either, actually. So you can actually see, if I do that, there we are, just up here, you can see right through the model there. I've done it with the engines taken out. This is a Derelict piece, and I took the engines out because A, they're very basic, but B, I thought it would really fit with the Derelict theme, and it would allow me to add a lot of extra detail, which I've done. So there's a lot of wiring that goes on in there. It's difficult to see here on this camera. There's a lot of wiring there. It was great fun. I've done some extra detailing in the gearbox area as well, and it really does make it pop. The other thing I've done externally to this, as well as the photo etch bits and pieces, is I've done a full rivet job, and it really suits this. It really adds that extra dimension to the model. It makes it highly more detailed. But I do remember when applying the rivets with the rivet wheel that the plastic would, in some areas, delaminate, and I've never seen that before on a model. So that was actually really quite frustrating. I don't know what caused it. Maybe it's just a bad batch, something like that. I don't know. This is the only Zvezda kit I've ever made. Not going to be making any more soon. Like I say, this was done a few years ago, before that, you know, the invasion of Ukraine. Anyway, stay out of that, shall we? Slava Ukraine and all that. But that's not the topic of this discussion. So the rivets have actually elevated the external areas really well. It really works on this. The rivets are quite prominent on these Soviet helicopters. You'll also see, maybe, that the wheels, if I just do this, you can see here the wheels are flat. All I did there is I just sliced off the bottom of the wheel. I didn't bother building up the tyre on the outside, probably because I couldn't be bothered. I should have done, really, but in this scale, 72nd, you kind of get away with it. And that's it, really, for the construction. Like I say, quite complicated. Lots of little details, photo etch, sticky out bits. With the open doors, that's quite fragile. The pitot probe is really fragile. I suspect that's master barrels, or it is plastic shaft because it's broken, and I've had to glue it back on. Gun barrels. I thought this actually rotates. I thought I could have removed the barrels, but I thought, no, I'll leave the barrels in there. Maybe they've taken the guts of the gun out and left the barrels sticking out. But, you know, I quite like that. It's a gunship at the end of the day, isn't it? And I have seen Derelict Hinds with gun barrels. The painting and weathering then. This model has only been treated with acrylics. That was the brief. It's for the acrylics issue of the Weathering magazine, which, like I say, is out any minute now. And I really had to put my thinking cap on in how to approach it, because a Derelict model using oils and enamel products is really, it's a lot more straightforward. I won't say it's straightforward, but it's a lot more straightforward than having to use acrylics. Overall, it had a primer, really important, I thought, because there's, like I say, there's quite a lot of different materials on this, brass, etc. So I used a primer, which was the acrylic one shot, and then I used ammo acrylic, so not the Atom ones. This, like I say, this is done a few years ago, before the Atom range was released. I painted the light blue first, and then lightened the paint, thinned it down, did some sort of shading with that, masked it off, then painted the buff colour, again lightened it in certain areas, tinted it, and then to do the green. So I used the black masking putty, put that over the model, then sprayed the green, lightened it and stuff. But that putty is actually a very, very viscous liquid. Putting it down at the start is actually quite frustrating because it wants to lift off. It just doesn't grab. But if you just leave it for a minute or two, it will grab because it's actually flowing. And then it will grab onto the surface. But what that means is you paint over the whole model, and in some areas it's been moving. So as you go back over it, the mask has moved ever so slightly. So what you can find is you'll get not a opaque, thin, very tight spray pattern. It as it pulls away and you do different layers, you'll see different effects around the border. And I found that, and I thought, oh no, that's really quite annoying. If I was doing this in my normal lacquers, MRPs or whatever, or Geosci Creos, then I just did it freehand. But I was a bit nervous about doing that freehand with the acrylics. But I bit the bullet. I used the acrylic thinner, thinned the paint right down, practiced on a bit of scrap to get the air pressure right, and then went in and went over the border. And I found with just the standard MIG acrylic paint with their own thinner, playing around with the paint ratios and the air pressure, I could get a very tight spray pattern. And as you can see, all these areas have the borders gone over with that concoction freehand, and you can see how tight it is. So actually, I was really, really impressed, really pleasantly surprised about how that came out. That was a real success, and a real notable feature of this project that I was not expecting to be able to get those results. I thought about on these areas, is it that particularly rusty? No, let's turn it around again. All right, Mayday. Try not to knock anything off because that will be bad. Right, I'll turn it around here so you can see all these rusty areas. So this is, I'm assuming, armor plate to protect the vitals. I assume that was steel, so I've done some proper rust effects on there. No hairspray chipping. Or did I do hairspray chipping? Do you know what? It's been so long, I'm going to have to wait for the magazine to come out and check myself. But I definitely remember going back in with a brush over the top. So maybe I started with some hairspray chipping and then backed it up with the brush and sponge afterwards. And then it's had a filter over the top and then lots of streaking effects. Streaking with acrylics. Yeah, it works. It does work. A lot of it actually was pigment mixed up with thinner, applied, allowed to dry, and then streaked down with the thinner. Now, the difference between using this and oils is you can't leave it on there. So you've got to stick it on, let it dry for 30 seconds, a minute, and then go in and blend. Because if you wait any longer, you ain't going to blend it. It's gonna cure, if you like. Whereas obviously enamels and oils, you can reactivate very easily a very long time after you've applied them. So I had to use a bit of thought there. And then there's a lot of dirt streaking. I really ought to plan this, haven't I? Because I've got to turn it around again. Oh, crumbs. There we are. You can see the sort of dirt streaking here from this exhaust coming down. Some on the tail from the gearbox. Again, that was done exactly the same way, obviously with different tones, sort of grimy tones. And we're kind of almost there then. That was the main bit of weathering. On the top, I did some splatter effects. Again, really easy with oils, but it did work with acrylics. I just mixed up some pigment with paint, made it really thin, played around with the consistency, and splattered that all around the top. That worked well. It's got pigments in the nooks and crannies for sort of dust and dirt, especially on the inside, actually. A lot of dust and dirt in there. And I'm really, really pleased with how it's turned out. And like I say, I didn't think I'd be able to get an effect or a final result as good as this just using acrylics, but I did. I'm really pleased with this model. I have had success with it at Telford in the competition, so I was very pleased with that. That other people acknowledged that as well, and yeah, one of my favourite kits in the cabinet. Beautiful little model, and I'm extremely pleased with it. So that is the 1/72 scale Mi-24 Hind from Zvezda. I hope you enjoyed that little debrief chat, and yeah, stay tuned for more. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Cheers, bye-bye.